take this job and shove it. I ain't working here no more. Seriously. It did cause a bit of a ruffle, gave a proper notice, plenty of time.
For years, Ian Roussel stood at the center of the custom car world, earning a reputation as the king of custom cars. Viewers watched him transform scrap metal into rolling art on full custom garage, episode after episode. From the outside, it looked like a dream career, but behind the sparks and deadlines was a different story, one filled with exhaustion, personal loss, and a breaking point that nearly changed everything. When the builder broke. Long before fans questioned whether Ian Roussel would ever walk away from television, there was a moment in the Mojave Desert that almost made the decision for him. No dramatic music, no slow-motion edit, just brutal heat, unforgiving sun, and a man pushing himself too far. During one summer shoot for Full Custom Garage, temperatures climbed past 115 degrees. The crew kept rolling. Deadlines didn't disappear just because the desert felt like a furnace. Ian was welding, lifting, filming, repeating takes, hours stacking into a 13-hour stretch. Then his body simply shut down. He collapsed from heat exhaustion, flat on the shop floor while cameras were still running. This wasn't a staged scare for ratings. It was real. And it wasn't the only time his health buckled under the weight of production pressure. Viewers saw the finished builds, the calm explanations, the sparks flying in perfect angles, the satisfaction of a machine roaring to life. What they didn't see were the 60-hour weeks, the constant need to make creativity happen on command, the reality that turning scrap into art on television required more than talent. It demanded stamina most people never notice. But the warning signs didn't start in the desert. They started decades earlier, in a garage far from TV lights. Ian Roussel was born on November 19, 1970, in Sunland, California. Even his birth carried a strange footnote. A paperwork error later listed his birth year as 1971, a mistake blamed on clerical chaos following the Silmar earthquake. It became a running joke in his life. Some records said one age. His family swore by another. Every birthday cake carried the numbers 11-1970 just to keep the truth straight. He grew up an only child in a house where tools mattered more than toys. His father, Jerry, worked days at Lockheed's Skunk Works and spent nights in the garage. Scrap aircraft aluminum found new life under their roof. By 8 years old, Ian was shaping panels for homemade go-karts. By 10, he could gap spark plugs and read cam specs like homework. Jerry had one rule: build it right before you drive it. Their biggest early project, a 1955 Chevy Nomad bought for $75, became a bonding ritual. 32 evenings replacing the floor, measuring twice, cutting once. That wagon still sits in Ian's Mojave shop today, a relic of where the obsession began. By high school, Ian wasn't just fixing cars, he was reshaping them. He parked a raw, half-finished 1929 Ford Model A pickup outside his graduation ceremony despite being told not to. His GPA sat at 2.7, but he scored nearly perfect in metal fabrication. College recruiters called. He declined. His explanation was simple: college can't weld. Even as a kid, he treated cars like sculpture. At 9, he carved a 4-foot Ford grille replica from foam just to study its shape. Sometimes he forgot to add steering wheels to his mock-ups. Movement came second, form came first. That artistic stubbornness would later make him famous, but it also planted the seed of something dangerous, a belief that the work always comes first, before comfort, before rest, before health. And in the years ahead, that mindset, forged in a quiet California garage, would collide headfirst with fame, pressure, and an industry that never slows down. Because once the world discovered Ian Roussel, the pace didn't just increase, it exploded. And that's where the real cost began to show. The rise no one saw coming. If the desert collapse was a warning, the years before it were a rocket launch. Right after high school, Ian didn't hesitate. No college applications, no backup plans. While classmates picked majors, he stepped straight into Southern California's custom car scene, a world ruled by legends and guarded by reputation. He found work wherever he could, learning inside shops run by icons like Boyd Coddington, Chip Foose, and Jesse James. During the day, he absorbed everything. At night, he built his own creations. By his early 20s, his work was already appearing at major shows like SEMA, and the Grand National Roadster Show. Not as an assistant, not as background help, as a builder with a signature style. At just 22, Ian opened his own shop. It wasn't glamorous. It was small, underfunded, and packed with second-hand tools. Most shop owners in the industry were twice his age. Few expected him to survive, let alone compete. But Ian had something different. He wasn't restoring cars. He was reinventing them. He didn't advertise, didn't chase magazine covers. His business model was almost reckless in its simplicity. I'll build anything. And people tested that promise. Space-age bumpers, hybrid frames welded from mismatched brands, radical rat rods that traditionalists called ruined classics. While other builders protected originality, Ian tore it apart and rebuilt it from scratch. His cars didn't look factory fresh. They looked rebellious, strange, sometimes controversial. Some called them punk rock hot rods. Others called him crazy. Ian didn't care. Approval wasn't the goal. Expression was. Those early years were brutal financially. There were nights he slept in the shop. Meals were cheap and quick. The lights stayed on only because the next project was already lined up. Every finished car had to fund the next gamble. Then came a turning point. At a Las Vegas car show in the mid-1990s, Ian unveiled a radical rat rod he nearly abandoned due to budget problems. It didn't look like anything else on the lot. Rough edges, aggressive stance, no apologies. Instead of being dismissed, it became the most talked-about build at the show. A documentary crew noticed. Cameras followed. When the footage aired, something shifted. Collectors started calling. Orders stacked up. Suddenly, the builder who once worried about rent was shipping cars overseas. To Japan, Germany, the Netherlands. His name started circulating beyond Southern California. In 2005, another Las Vegas build cemented his reputation. The car drew massive attention and was later featured in the documentary Back from the Dead. Industry insiders began placing him on top builder lists, alongside veterans who had been fabricating for decades. He hadn't followed the rules. He'd rewritten them. Soon, private clients with recognizable names came knocking. Musicians, actors, producers. Many preferred discretion. But within industry circles, Ian Roussel was no longer just a fabricator. He was a creator with edge. And then television came calling. What started as a mailed DVD of random build footage slowly evolved into something bigger than he ever planned. Producers saw authenticity. No forced personality, no fake drama, just raw talent and sparks flying. It felt like validation, like the reward for years of grinding in silence. But here's the twist no one talks about. As his career accelerated, as the cameras grew closer and the deadlines tighter, something else quietly began to strain. Because while the world celebrated Ian Roussel's rise, his personal life was about to be tested in a place far more unforgiving than any car show, out in the desert. And that's where the real story takes a turn. Life beyond the cameras. Success may have found Ian in showrooms and trade halls, but love found him somewhere far quieter and far harsher. For 6 years, Ian and his wife Jamie built their life in the Mojave Desert. Not the postcard version, the real one. Triple-digit summers, winds that never seemed to rest, air so dry it cracked skin and patience alike. Some days climbed past 115 degrees. Privacy wasn't hard to find out there. Survival sometimes was. Jamie entered Ian's world not as a fan, but as a partner. She had worked as a hospice nurse in Las Vegas, a career rooted in compassion and endurance. When she chose to join him in the desert, she brought her teenage son and stepped fully into Ian's unpredictable universe of sparks and steel. Out there, distractions disappear. What remains is whatever two people are willing to build together. Jamie didn't just stand beside Ian, she stepped into the business. She handled logistics, editing, customer communication, the invisible work that kept everything moving while Ian shaped metal. Over time, she became part of the creative rhythm. The shop wasn't just his anymore. It was theirs. In 2019, Ian surprised her with something deeply personal, a hand-built 1962 VW June buggy as a wedding gift. Metallic flake finish, custom fiberglass, every detail crafted by hand. It wasn't just a vehicle, it was a symbol of love, of partnership, of a shared vision in the middle of nowhere. But desert living carries a weight few talk about. The isolation, the relentless heat, the pressure of growing television exposure. Jamie had always been camera shy, yet suddenly she was part of a show reaching millions. Deadlines tightened, expectations rose, and the silence of the desert began to feel heavier. They told themselves the sacrifice was worth it. But what fans didn't see was that Jamie was quietly fighting battles of her own, physical, mental, emotional. And before long, those unseen struggles would force both of them to confront something far more serious than ratings or builds. Because the next crisis wasn't about engines, it was about survival. The crisis no one filmed. Long before any public announcement, Jamie was unraveling quietly. She had spent years as an ER nurse and later trained as a holistic nutritional health coach, believing true healing started from within. But while she was helping build Ian's growing brand, editing episodes, managing clients, standing in front of cameras despite her anxiety, her own health was slipping. The desert didn't help. Neither did the pressure, living in relentless heat, working long production days, carrying the emotional weight of supporting a rising TV personality. It became too much. What looked like strength on screen masked exhaustion behind the scenes. Eventually, she stepped away from nursing, not as a career move, but as a necessity. Her physical and mental health demanded it. Viewers never saw that version of her. They saw smiles, shop banter, finished builds. But inside the workshop, something fragile was forming. And as Jamie fought to stabilize herself, the show that had elevated them both was about to demand even more. Because the cameras weren't slowing down. They were just getting started. Lights, cameras, burnout. What looked like a breakthrough was, in many ways, a slow squeeze. Full Custom Garage officially premiered in 2014, but its roots stretched back years earlier when Ian casually mailed raw build footage to a producer. No hype, no strategy, just sparks and steel. What producers saw was rare. Someone who didn't act for cameras. He simply built. That authenticity became the show's identity. No staged feuds, no scripted meltdowns, just fabrication, creativity, and problem-solving in real time. Viewers responded. Ratings held steady. Episodes stacked up. Over a decade, more than 90 builds aired. From the outside, it was proof that betting on yourself works. Inside the shop, it felt different. Television moves faster than metal. Projects that once took months were suddenly squeezed into tight production windows. Filming days stretched to 13, sometimes 14 hours under desert heat. Conversations were repeated for clarity. Angles reset, moments recreated. The organic rhythm of building began to compete with the structure of storytelling. Deadlines don't care about inspiration. Ian has admitted that pressure occasionally forced compromises, not reckless ones, but calculated risks. Working longer, pushing through exhaustion, welding in brutal temperatures because the light was right, smiling on camera even when energy was gone. Meanwhile, Jamie was balancing logistics, editing, and her own private health struggles. The desert isolation that once felt freeing now amplified everything. Fatigue, stress, grief. Then came a blow no one could schedule around. Dude, the shop dog fans adored, was diagnosed with cancer in 2022. For years, he had been part of the shop's heartbeat, wandering through builds, resting under frames, quietly present in the background of countless episodes. Viewers didn't just recognize him, they loved him. When Ian shared updates, support flooded in, but hope didn't last. On May the 5th, 2022, Ian posted the message, "No builder ever wants to write. Dude had passed." The loss hit deeper than expected. Dude had been there through the early grind, through the rise, through every chapter of the show. Losing him felt symbolic, like the end of something larger than a pet, and it happened while Jamie was struggling, while deadlines tightened, while expectations climbed. Success had once felt like momentum, now it felt like weight. Somewhere between grief and exhaustion, Ian began asking himself a question he never thought he would. What happens if I just stop? At first, it sounded impossible, but the thought didn't go away, and soon, it would become a decision. The day he walked away. For a decade, Full Custom Garage was Ian's world. Episode after episode, the builds amazed audiences, collectors, and fellow builders. But behind the cameras, the heat, the deadlines, and the relentless grind were quietly taking their toll. Every welding torch, every 13-hour shoot, every press of the record button added weight. In late 2023, Ian made the decision that stunned fans. He quit. No dramatic announcements, no network disputes, just a simple, firm choice to walk away from the show he had built from nothing. MAVTV had been a partner, but Ian realized the formula was no longer serving him. The fun, the freedom, the pure joy of building, all had been replaced with a production schedule that treated creativity like a ticking clock. He gave notice, wrapped up commitments, and ensured his team and the audience weren't left stranded. Season 9 aired as planned, finishing in January 2024 with 6 final episodes. Each build showcased skill and passion, but now on Ian's terms. This was more than leaving a show. It was reclaiming his life, his craft, and his mental and physical well-being. The heat, the pressure, the sacrifices, none of it had been worth staying if it meant losing himself in the process. Yet quitting wasn't the end. It was the beginning of something new, a chance to rebuild without scripts, cameras, or deadlines. Ian didn't just step away from television, he opened a door to reinvent how he shared his art with the world. What came next would change everything, for him, for Jamie, and for the future of every build they touched. Rebuilding from the ashes. Even before the last episodes of Full Custom Garage aired, Ian and Jamie were quietly plotting the next chapter. In January 2023, they launched a YouTube channel, Full Custom Ian. Unlike network TV, this was a space without scripts, deadlines, or producer notes, a world where every idea could come to life exactly as they imagined. The response was instant. Within 4 months, their subscriber count hit 100,000. One standout video, Desert Ranch Build Finale, reached 2.4 million views by the end of the year. Each build revealed Ian's raw skill, from the welding sparks to the final polish, unfiltered, uncut, and fully authentic. Jamie, once behind the scenes, stepped into a starring role. She became producer, editor, and creative partner, shaping episodes that quickly went viral. Their teamwork resulted in 26 full releases in 2023 alone, more than triple the content they produced during a full TV season. It was a level of creative freedom they had never experienced. In September 2024, they made the emotional decision to close their iconic Desert Ranch shop. The 2,600 square foot building had birthed over 180 incredible builds. Fans mourned alongside them as their farewell video reached 750,000 views in just 2 days. The final build, the final chop, sold for $280,000, shattering previous records and cementing the shop's legendary status. But for Ian and Jamie, it was not an ending. It was a stepping stone. By October 2024, they moved into a state-of-the-art 4,800 square foot workshop at the Mojave Air and Spaceport. Proper ventilation, air conditioning, and modern tools allowed them to build faster and more safely than ever. Projects like the futuristic Rocket Rod and the restored 1941 Mercury convertible weren't just cars. They were statements. Every bolt, panel, and custom touch reflected a freedom they had fought years to reclaim. Meanwhile, the traditional TV world collapsed. On November 18, 2024, Motor Trend Studios shut down, erasing dozens of shows overnight. Ian's decision to leave television suddenly seemed visionary, not impulsive. While other builders scrambled to adapt, Ian and Jamie had already created a platform where passion dictated the pace, not ratings or scripts. Yet, beneath the triumph and innovation, the human cost remained. The late nights, the exhaustion, the heartbreak, and sacrifices no camera ever captured. And that cost, more than any TV spotlight or viral view, was the true story that the world had yet to fully see. Little did anyone know, the most emotional chapter was about to unfold. A chapter that would reveal the heartbreaking truth of what Ian and Jamie endured behind the glory of their builds. When passion comes at a price. The tragedy of Ian Roussel isn't scandal or controversy, it's profoundly human. It's the story of a man who spent decades perfecting a craft, creating a TV empire, and achieving the kind of success most dream of, only to realize it came at an invisible cost. It's about watching your loyal dog battle cancer while deadlines and heat push you to the brink. About seeing your partner sacrifice her own health to keep a dream alive, only to discover that dream is draining both of you. It's collapsing from exhaustion, realizing the work you love has become a source of pain. The heartbreak wasn't quitting Full Custom Garage. It was having to choose life over TV fame, health over applause, authenticity over the spotlight. Yet, Ian and Jamie's story doesn't end in despair. They rebuilt on their own terms. A new shop, new builds, creative freedom, and each other. The truth is clear. Sometimes the bravest move isn't holding on to what the world admires, but walking away to protect what truly matters. What do you think about Ian Roussel's journey? Share your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more inspiring stories like this.